Lance Hall here for Let's Discuss with Lance Hall, helping to welcome Anton of Pentagram Chile to the program today. How you doing, Anton?
Good. How are you, Lance?
I am doing well. You have a new album, Life Eternal Life of Madness, coming out April 26th on Listenable Records. I have heard an advance copy. It's fantastic, Anton. You must be excited to get this one out to the masses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it took us so long to make, and we're really proud of it. We're really satisfied with it. It always happens that you do an album, and then in hindsight, there's things that you want to change and stuff like that. But not this time. I think. Well, I wouldn't say it's a perfect album, but it's. I think it's the best we could do, and we did.
This album came out of a COVID lockdown, correct? When you were in Spain, you started writing for one group that you're in, but then you said it was going into the pentagram sort of mood of things, and you decided to go with that.
Yeah, I mean, we had an attempt before the pandemic to write as a group. We even met at the studio once or twice and did a few sessions. And one song on the album, the Portal, actually the first single that actually came out of those sessions, even though we had to kind of rework it a little bit afterwards. But yeah, I mean, I was writing for the last Lockup album, and some of the riffs I was writing, I was like, wow, that's not really Lockup. That sounds more like Pentagram. So I started putting those into a folder, and it kind of started piling up. So at some point I said, well, I nearly have enough material for an album here. So I started working on those and kind of giving them structure, and sending them to our drummer. So he could put like a demo drum track on it, and yeah, and once we started doing that, it came together pretty quickly. Maybe I wish we would have started earlier, but maybe it's just the timing of the universe, and it allowed us to make a better record.
Yeah, I mean, it's where life takes you, and you go with the flow. Definitely, definitely. Let's talk about a few of the songs on Eternal Life of Madness. I've heard an advanced copy. Like I said, it's fantastic. We'll start with the one track you mentioned, The Portal. You've got a lyric video out for it.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube. Call me crazy, Anton, but I listened to that song like two or three times, watched the video. Every time that song kicked in, what I heard in my head was very similar to the Beatles' Helter Skelter riff, the opening of that
Oh,
song.
really?
The way it kind of whirls around.
All
Um,
right. Okay, that's interesting. I've never heard of that or even thought of that,
I was going to
but
say, were the Beatles ever in your universe at all?
not really. I was never a major Beatles fan. I came into music later. I know a lot of the bands that I love were influenced by the Beatles, like such as Queen, or
Yeah.
even Motorhead. Um, I mean, I know the importance of them, but I've never really listened to them a
Yeah.
lot.
Like I
But
said, call me crazy, but
I'm familiar. I'm
it
familiar
spoke
with
to
the
me.
song, obviously, and
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, that you draw that parallel.
Yeah. I mean, there was just I could hear bits and pieces of the way it was structured and the way the guitar sounded and the way it just flowed. To me, about the third time, I'm like, first time I was like, no, it's just me. You're always hearing stuff like this. About the third time, I'm like, no, I'm hearing Helter Skelter here. Yeah.
Well, we meant to do an old school album, but I don't know if that old school.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the portal.
Well, I think, well, it's got a definite Slayer influence, I think, like the sort of between Hell Awaits and South of Heaven, probably. The way the phrasing, the way the vocals go and everything. Um, it's got a very death metal ending though, and I wasn't really sure when we were finishing it. It's that kind of not going in a completely different direction at the end, but it's interesting. It's kind of a curveball. It's like, whoa, what happened here? You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's cool, man. And the lyrics are a little bit like a sort of how do you say, a stream of consciousness kind of thing. I didn't really
Okay.
think much about them. I just wrote what came to mind.
Hmm.
It's like a portal to a different world, you know. It's loosely based on Lovecraft, maybe, even though
Okay.
I'm not a big Lovecraft fanatic, you know, but
Right.
I'm obviously familiar with his work, you know, and this universe, and yeah, it's kind of goes in that direction.
Cool. Let's go back a couple of tracks. Track two, Possessor. I love that real thick guitar intro. And what I heard on a lot of these songs is, it's heavy and it's thrash and it's death metal, but there's a wicked sense of melody throughout so many of these songs that I could hear. And this was one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been, I think, a characteristic of ours to have, you know, we have a very special kind of riff that Shane Embury actually calls them the spider riffs, you know, the
Mhm.
ones that go like really quick, like legato, like you know, like that.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of that in our old songs, and we brought it over into our new stuff as well, you know. So I think that gives it a lot of the character that makes it actually recognizable as Pentagram Chile, you know. I
Mhm.
think the intro to that song, you know, the slow riff is probably influenced by Celtic Frost, you know.
Mhm.
We wanted to do something recognizable, you know, something catchy, even though it's brutal, it's heavy and everything, but I think the even this kind of music needs to have hooks, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that riff is a major hook anyway in the chorus of the song as well. This is actually going to be our third single, you know. It's going to come out just a week before the album comes out. We just did a video for it too, but this is just kind of a performance video. It's like it's us playing the song, not really playing it, miming to it, you know.
Sure.
But it's set on a live stage and stuff, you know. So yeah,
Excellent.
it's something. Mhm.
Let's move to track five, Eternal Life of Madness, title track. I love this title. I love the words and that you used in it. And to me, this track was just like beyond intense. I mean, I was sweating by the time I got done listening to this one.
Thanks, man. This song was actually, I mean, the riffs were written by our other guitarist, JP Uribe.
Okay.
He just sent me a whole bunch of riffs, you know, he'd written because he came in kind of late into the songwriting, you know. He kind of at some point he realized, Jesus, Anton has already fucking written like 7 or 8 songs and I haven't written anything, you know. So
Yeah.
he kind of stepped it up and he came up with a lot of fucking really good, really, really good riffs.
Yeah.
But they didn't, I mean, they were kind of in a structure, but I had to kind of arrange him. You know, I put them into a I don't know, yeah, into a structure. You know,
Yeah.
and obviously then the drum arrangement and it all came together as a song. You know, it
Mhm.
was loose riffs at the beginning, and then it turned into a song. But his is the merit of it because yeah, I mean, it's got great, really great riffs in it. Very recognizable as Pentagram as well, I think. You
Can you
know,
give
and
us a little bit of story behind the title and the lyrics?
yeah, I was just going to.
Okay, sorry.
Eternal Life of Madness is actually a line from the song Spell of the Pentagram from our very first demo from 1987.
Wow.
And I was in Peru once, and I was talking to two guys who were like the biggest Pentagram fans ever. And one of the guys said, "Yeah, the best line in a Pentagram song is "Eternal Life of Madness," you know." And I thought about it, then I said, "Well, that would be a cool title for a second
Yeah.
album." The lyrics deal well. Madness and insanity have always been like a recurring theme in our songs, and I think that stems from the fact that both JP and myself have a history of mental disease in the family, you know, which
Mm.
so we are kind of familiar with it, but it's still terrifying and weird, you know.
Yeah.
But it also the lyrics also connect with the myth of the eternal return, like that we're stuck in loop and that we're damned to repeat the same thing ever, always, ever, ever again and again, you know. So yeah, it's pretty deep stuff, you know,
Hmm.
and yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with the lyrics.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Track six, Icons of Decay, shortest song on the record, but man, did it pack a punch. And as I'm listening to it, the thing that jumped out at me at the end was like those machine gun like drums right
Mhm.
towards the end of the song. I that like really blasted my ears. I was listening through earbuds. I like that.
Cool, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that it's probably the most different song on the album, I would say.
Hmm. Yeah.
Not only that it's shorter, but also the style of it, the style of the riffing and everything. It has something that reminds me of Death, actually, of
Mm.
Chuck Schuldiner kind of way
Okay.
of writing riffs and harmonies and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean the drum arrangement is gives it a whole new dimension as well. You know, it's probably the busiest track drum wise. You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, we played this already live on the 70,000 tons of metal cruise.
Mm.
And it's a hard song to play live and sing at the same time, but I'm sure I'm gonna manage it because we
You just
wanna play at least 5 of these new songs live
yeah.
when we go out on tour.
You just got to put it in the right place in the set, when you've caught your breath.
Yeah, exactly.
um, Track eight, State of Grace. To me, this was like listening to three different songs at once. There was so many parts and pieces and paces to this song. Um, it was it was really cool. This was probably my favorite track on the album.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it packs a few different styles of riffing into one song. You know, the first song, the first riff is inspired by Morbid Angel, actually.
Mm,
And then, yeah, it's got the slow one, which is more like Celtic Frost. And then it's got this whole Slayer section, you know.
yeah,
Um, but I think we managed to kind of keep it together and make it sound coherent and that it sounds like Pentagram, you know.
yeah.
This is a song that I would have chosen as a single, actually,
Mm.
but I was outvoted, you know.
Yeah,
But I really love it. I really like the intense part, you know, the like everything around you, you must die, you know.
yeah,
It's and it's the lyrics are actually about the whole concept of transhumanism and how man can live forever through a machine, you know,
mm,
and stuff like that. You know, yeah, it's kind of heady stuff, you know, but I
yeah,
always disguise it as in a language that I was like to call like biblical, you know, because
hmm,
it's very simple, very so a person from that era, you know, in the first century could probably understand it, you know, and
sure.
make something of it, you know.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Morbid Angel. I saw them on a show along with Slayer. It was Morbid Angel, Scrape, uh, Static X, Slayer, and Pantera. And
Wow, that's a strange bill.
yeah, yeah, it was, but it worked. And Morbid Angel came out first, and they were awesome. And then to be honest, after Slayer, I had nothing left for Pantera. I mean, and
Uh,
Static X was put on a fantastic set that night.
all right, all
Yeah,
right.
and I just said I'm sorry, and it was the original lineup of Pantera with everybody, all and I had nothing left after Static X and Slayer.
Too
Um,
many bands then.
yeah. Now, speaking of having nothing left, we got State of Grace, which has all those different parts and pieces. You come out of that into the Seeds of the Dead, which is the longest song on the album. Again, really adventurous was my note here, and I'm going to come out of left field on you again. The outro, the way that song kind of wound down real slow in the end with the drums and everything, reminded me of the way Black Diamond wound down on the first Kiss album.
Well, actually, this is another song that was written by the other guitarist, by JP Uribe. And he says he based that first and last riff on Led Zeppelin.
Oh, wow.
You know,
Yeah.
when,
Yeah. Okay.
Dazed and Confused is the song, right?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and you can actually hear it.
Hmm.
It's weird, man, and but it works. He totally made it, kind of disguised it, as Pentagram, and it's cool. Yeah, it's I think it's the longest song probably on the
Yeah, it's the
album.
longest song on the album. Yeah.
And it's got a lot of different parts. I doubt that we will ever play this live, because it's got
Yeah.
so many parts. But it was it's the process, the creative process was kind of the same as the one with the title track.
Hmm.
He just threw a bunch of riffs at me, and I structured them and passed them on to our drummer. But yeah, I think it was it was fun to make, and it's that's nice with Pentagram, that you really have the freedom to go wherever you want, because our songs are not bound by a classic song structure scheme. It's
Hmm.
just, you can do whatever you want. If you want to just repeat a riff once in the fucking song, then you do it.
Yeah.
Or if you want to repeat it 5 times, you can do it too, or maybe three, or and the way things are, the measures are all odd sometimes. Things are not
Hmm.
like 4/4, but they're like 3/4 or 5/4, and that kind of thing. So which makes it interesting and creative.
Yeah. You guys are not cookie cutter at all, that's for sure, you know?
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
We never were, and we never will be, I think.
Yeah. Was there
And
any song in particular that was really hard to put together for this album, that you worked and worked on, or did everything come together fairly easily?
the only song that I'm still not convinced about is the last one,
Okay.
but maybe because it's so different, because the first riff is it's kind of based on Trouble, the band Trouble,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Chicago Doom band.
Definitely the Skull. I had that album. Yeah, I think in fact I've still got it. Yeah.
So I wanted to do something kind of like that, but
Hmm.
I don't know if I've drifted too far away from what from what people expect of Pentagram, maybe.
Yeah.
But then it kind of turns into almost like a Slayer song towards the end.
Hmm.
So that's kind of, I don't know. Songwriting wise, it's probably the weirdest, but I hope it works.
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave it off the album because it has some really cool parts and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's last for a reason.
Cool. I liked it. I thought it was I thought it was a great track. I thought it was a great closer. Um,
Cool. Cool.
I want to go back in time and talk a little bit because you look at the way the world is now and the way this band formed, way back in 1985. You were 16 years old, right?
Yeah.
Um, in Chile, bands here, hear about bands here, they try to get a gig or, they're trying to buy equipment or stuff like that. Down there, it was a whole other scene. Not only did you have to find equipment, but like trying to do gigs, you were up against police harassment, a dictatorship, your
Mhm.
parents. You couldn't put something out on YouTube and have it go viral in 5.2 seconds. You had to rely on tape trading. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about those days and all that you guys had to overcome to get to where you are now.
Well, yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, and that that sort of blind belief in what you're doing that drove us back then is really amazing. It's really, I need to something that we need to tap into to actually be able to replicate this sound nowadays, I think. But yeah, it was very difficult. The country was ruled by a military dictatorship. The
Yeah.
police didn't like us long-haired, black wearing punks at all.
Mm.
And we would regularly meet outside the one record shop, the record store that brought in all the imports, all the Venom and Metallica albums and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And we were harassed all the time. They just showed up and they took a bunch of us and arrested us, or they just held us for a while, for a few hours, and then released us again. But it was a game of cat and mouse all the time. And then when we started doing gigs, which, by the way, we had to put together all on our own, you know, because there was no promoters, there was no clubs who would fucking have us or anything, you know. We just had to rent a space and rent a PA and just put the show together, you know. Some bands were lucky enough that their parents helped them. I wasn't, you know, my parents hated all this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we started doing all these gigs, you know, and all of a sudden a lot of people started showing up, like over 1,000 people sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
showing up, and obviously that didn't go unnoticed, you know. The police turned up, and sometimes they shut down the gigs, you know. Sometimes they just beat up the fans outside on their way out, you know.
Mm.
Beat them up with sticks and stuff like that, you know. And it was rough times, you know.
Yeah.
But as I
Yeah.
said, you know, and we didn't. I mean, I don't really remember if we did expect something actually to work and something to happen with this band, you know. But we had the drive, you know, and we said we need to record these songs, you know. We thought they were good enough to stand up against what we were hearing on the tapes that we traded, you know. So we did, and it's weird how, well, it's unfortunate how the band ended, you know, and because it I mean, I wish we'd done at least one album back then, you know.
Yeah.
But it's also weird how the band and its music kind of took on a life of its own, you know. The music lived on beyond the band's demise, you know, because
Right.
people kept trading it, and all of a sudden I was like flipping through a mag and would see like Napalm Death or Dismember wearing Pentagram shirts, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on, you know?
Yeah.
This is weird, you know. By that time, you know, I was in another band already, Criminal, which became quite successful.
Yeah.
But at some point when we did the whole we did like a compilation of the demos, and
Yeah.
that it all kind of started coming back, and it seemed so unfair how the band had ended and everything, that we decided to give it another go. But
Mhm.
obviously that first period of the band, those years from 1985 to 88, you can't replicate them. It was a unique moment in not only in our lives, but in the music history, you know,
Yeah.
in the history of metal, in the how this whole scene evolved. I always say that the whole tape trading and fan scene thing was an analog social media, because
Definitely.
it was worldwide, you know.
Yeah.
And you could communicate with people from Japan or from Croatia or whatever, you know, and
Right.
and you all had the same interests, you know, and the material. I mean, it took longer, obviously, because you had to wait for the fucking postman,
Right.
but but it was cool, man. It was
Yeah.
definitely something very special, and I'm very proud of that I was part of it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I want to go back to the first thing you said there with, the blind hope. I saw a picture on your Wikipedia page of you and a very young Max Cavalera from uh oh God. They're only
Sepultura.
Sepultura, yes. Talk about a total brain skip here. Um, when I interviewed him, I asked him about starting, sort of the same questions you, and his thing was he quoted, "You got to have blind faith and no false hope." And he talked about coming to America and dressing in the airline's uniform to get on the plane and tucking his hair up under and everything, and coming to New York with the band's demos and stuff. And very, very similar story to yours.
Yeah,
He,
yeah. I
he
mean,
echoed your sentiment.
I think we shared the exact same sentiment, you know. And he was very driven, you know. I remember I went to see him. This picture is from February 1987, the picture you're talking about.
Yeah.
I used to do a fanzine back in the day, and I sent him an interview, and we kind of kept in contact and everything. And I told him I had the intention to go to Brazil, you know.
Mm.
And he said, maybe he didn't think much about it, but he said, come see me, you know.
Yeah.
And one day I just showed up at his fucking doorstep. And he couldn't believe it, you know. Him and Igor couldn't fucking believe it, you know. He's like, I actually came, you know. So but yeah, it was cool. I stayed with them for like 2 weeks or something like that. And
Mm,
I managed to go to one of the shows. I met all the other Cogumelo bands like Sarcophago and Holocausto, Mutilator, all those bands, you know. I
mm.
went to Sepultura rehearsals when they just released Morbid Visions and they were writing for Schizophrenia. So I was probably one of the first people to hear those riffs as
Wow.
well. So and yeah, I mean, I mean, I was kind of jealous because they were a step ahead, you know, in terms that
Yeah.
they already had an album and they were sort of being recognized. But the whole scene was far more advanced in Brazil. I mean, maybe not musically because it was all
Right.
very primitive over there.
Yeah.
I actually considered us to be a little superior to those bands in terms of musicality and technicality. But
Mm,
yeah, but I mean, they had labels, they had magazines, you know, they had venues to play. It was all a little different, you know.
yeah, definitely. Anton, I'm looking at the clock. Do you have another interview lined up? Do we have to wrap up or?
No, I don't have anything until 8.
Okay, I've got about 10 minutes left on my Zoom call. I had a couple more questions for you. I had
Sure.
to ask. You mentioned Criminal. You guys opened for Motorhead back in '96. Can you give me a quick Lemmy story?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I we were opening for them and I just knocked on their door on the dressing room door and someone said, "Come in." And he was on his own drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels, you know? And I was with my then girlfriend, now ex-wife, and we came in and he said, "Do you want a drink?" But he only had left like an inch of whiskey in his fucking bottle. And we said, "Well, don't want to drink the rest of your bottle." So he just pulled out another bottle, a full bottle, and put it on the table. Come on, let's drink. And oh man, I got so drunk. I don't remember playing the gig. But it was amazing. It was amazing meeting him and sharing with him, you know. And he was a character, man. He
Yeah.
was just fucking fantastic character. And it was a kind of a rough atmosphere in their dressing
Mm.
room. And at some point, actually, their tour manager came in and asked Lemmy if I was cool or if he should kick me out. And Lemmy said I could stay. And then he's just took out a rock, like a rock out of his out of his pocket and started chopping it up on the fucking table. And I asked Lemmy, "What is that?" And he looked at me with his crazy fucking eyes and said, "Amphetamine, speed." So yeah, that's my Lemmy story for you.
Oh, wow, that's a great one. Must have been a tremendous learning curve for you, though, seeing a band like that. Did you pick up a lot of how to do things and how not to do things, probably?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you learn. The thing is, in the 80s, we didn't have any bands from outside the country come play there, you
Mm,
know? So there was nobody to learn from. So we had to kind of make up shit ourselves, you
yeah.
know? And then in the 90s, you know, the first band like proper international successful extreme metal band to go to Chile was Creator in 92.
Mm,
And Criminal opened for them too. And I actually helped set up the whole show and everything because the organizers, they were actually the owners of this record store I mentioned earlier, but they had no clue. I mean, they said I walked into the store one day, and one of the guys asked me, "Well, how do you rent a Marshall amp?" And I'm like, "What are you on about?" And I said, "I can't tell you, but you have to help me." And I said, "Well, I'll help you, but you have to tell me. And if it is what I think, then you have to let me open the show, you know, with my band." And I did, you know, and yeah, that was actually my first contact with the Marshall amp because I had only played two piece of shit amps up to there, you know. And And yeah, and after that, you know, you got I think the next year we had Sepultura.
Mm.
And yeah, and slowly but surely more bands started going to South America, and we managed to open to a few of them. Exodus, like we played this festival with Anthrax and Slayer. And yeah, obviously you look, you look and you learn, you know, you look, you listen and you learn.
Definitely.
And I think that was very important for us. But in terms of like studio work, there was no one to learn from either until
Yeah.
we had enough of a budget with our label BMG back then
Mm.
to hire like an American producer for our second album, um, to learn about microphone techniques. And he actually told us, "Oh, let's use the 5150, you know, the PV amp, you know," and we
Yeah.
were not familiar with it at all, you know, but it sounded great, you know, and all
Yeah.
this stuff, you know. So yeah, it was not easy always, but it
Yeah.
was really interesting.
Cool. The band is Pentagram Chile. The album is Eternal Life of Madness. It's once again it's coming out April 26th on Listenable Records. We've been chatting with Anton, guitarist, vocalist. Anton, I always like to wind down with just some fun, silly questions.
Of course.
First thing that pops into your head, okay?
All right.
Favorite toy growing up as a child?
Toy.
Yeah.
Legos probably.
Legos. If
Yeah.
if you could blink and appear anywhere in the world, where would you like to go?
Without thinking about it too much, Thailand right now.
All right. Um, if you could speak any language instantly, what language would you pick?
Japanese probably.
Yeah, that'd be a good one to have. What food is better as a leftover as opposed to freshly cooked?
Better as a leftover.
Yep.
I think
I like
mostly, you know, stews. When you have like a stew with potatoes and meat and
absolutely.
stuff, you know, and vegetables, that normally it tastes better when it's been around for a day or so.
All right. If you could pick a television show to have a pentagram song placed in, what show would you pick?
Ooh, a television show. That's, oh man, that's a hard one. Probably some horror or science fiction or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
definitely. What's the oddest job you've ever held?
The oddest job.
Yep.
I was in telemarketing for a while, and I had to sell. I wasn't even aware of what I was trying to sell, but it was some sort of desk for stock traders, and I
Oh.
had to call these super busy these super busy stock traders all over Europe to ask them if they had plans to renew their desk. and and uh, and most of them were obviously super stressed and did not have time at all for this kind of stupid shit, you know. And I
Yeah,
don't even know how they got the numbers on the database or whatever, you know. But it was a very weird, very stressful, but it paid the bills.
that is a challenge. Last one. This is the one we have the most fun with. If they were to make a biopic of your life, what actor would you pick to play you? And it's your movie, your life. You can pick anybody.
Well, this is actually something that I've already thought about, but not because I'm
Okay.
terribly no, but not because I'm terribly egotistical. It's because a friend of mine, a girl, a woman, wrote a book,
Okay.
and it's been quite successful in Ireland, and it's there's talks of making it into a series or a film, you
Right.
know. And she asked me uh, who I'd like as an actor to play me, you know. And first I said Sean Penn, but apparently he's too old or something. But then I came up with Charlie Hunnam, but I'm probably not as good looking as him, but it would be nice.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like I said, you can pick anybody, you know? All
Sure.
right. I got about 5 minutes here before I'm going to zoom out. Is there anything we didn't talk about? Anything you didn't get to mention? Anything you wanted to say before we wind things down here? Floor's yours.
Well, not really. I just want to encourage people to go and listen to the new album. We I don't know when this interview is coming out, but we have a new single coming out now on in 2 days or so.
Okay.
And then the third single in April, 1 week before the album drops. And I encourage people to listen to them. We put a lot of passion, a lot of love into this album. We are really proud of it. You gotta love the old school though, because there is nothing, absolutely nothing modern or happy sounding on this album. You know, it's totally old school death thrash metal and nothing but that. You know, so if you liked Celtic Frost, early Slayer, early Morbid Angel, Possessed, Dark Angel, Atheist, Sacrifice, all those bands, then this is definitely for you.
Excellent. Once again, the album is Eternal Life of Madness, comes out April 26th on Listenable Records, and I echo your sentiments completely. Anton, thank you very much for your time today.
No,
Appreciate it.
thank you, man. I appreciate the support, and it was a very nice chat. So yeah, cool.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh yeah, you too, man.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.